Last vlog I mentioned people who don't think I have schizoid personality disorder because I'm not what they expect. I don't fit the stereotype. And actually, this is something that's very common in my life. Like, people often get weird ideas about me because I don't fit what they expect. So one I had recently is like when I was making a whole bunch of shorts, I did one in my cat hats and someone wrote a comment saying like, you know, how disgusting I was or something. And I don't really know what their problem was, but I think they might have thought that I'm a furry because I wear stuff like this, which I am not. I just like this fluffy cat hat. It's nice and warm. We've got cold weather in Australia at the moment, and it's just kind of fun rather than having some kind of boring hood. And look, it doubles as a scarf. It's got these little scarfy bits. I'm not very good at doing the scarfy thing, but yeah, and it warms my hands because it's got these little glovey things. Like, it's actually quite useful. And it's kind of cute. And, you know, I'm half Japanese as well, so some of the cat things that I have are a bit more Harajuku. You know, I have like a sort of jacket that has a hood with the little cat ears on it. And, you know, it's not like I purposely went out finding cat stuff. It's just that it's hard to find anything that's not a cat. There was one that's like a rabbit, but that one actually, the hood is a little bit small, so I feel like I have to like shorten my neck to actually get in there. But no, like, you know, it's not like they had wolf ones or, you know, batty ones. Like in a little recently, I posted something that had the little bat wing things. That was actually a friend got me from Punk Rave, so it's not really the Japanese Harajuku thing. But yeah, no, before I had access to like, you know, Punk Rave stuff, Harajuku was kind of the only place I could go because I didn't trust online shopping, and so I had to actually physically go to Japan where they have alternative fashion and I could try things on. And yeah, it just happened that a lot of the products they had were cat themed, and you know, I have another fluffy hat and that is also cat themed. It's just more of like a leopard thing and it just ties up around here, and that's a bit more practical, where like, you know, having all this floating around might not be so easy to work with. It just happened to be cat theme. Like, you know, I could just get a beanie, but aren't they a bit boring? And that one was so comfy and like, you know, keeps my ears warm when it's windy outside. And when I was in Japan, it was even colder than it was here, than it's been here. And like, I really needed something on my head, and that was just a really good solution. And then I happened to come across the mask shop, and this is before COVID. You know, Japan's been doing it for ages. They had the novelty masks, and so I had the cat mask. And it just happened that that was cat themed. My little hat was cat themed, and then I had cat themed gloves because, like, of all the little cute kind of things that I came across, they just happened to all be cats. I didn't seek it out on purpose. But yeah, I think sometimes people think that I'm obsessed with cats or am a furry, and that's not really the case. I have a dog. And I just dress like this when I'm cold, you know. I don't make an effort to dress like a cat in the summer. And, you know, when I want to wear that light jacket that has the cat ears as well, that is kind of weather dependent, and it just happens to be comfy, especially in certain types of weather, but like the way that the thing is constructed. Whereas, for example, the jacket I have that has rabbit ears, bit less comfy. And also it has like swear words written on it, and depending on where I'm going, maybe I don't really want to be provoking people or upsetting people with that. It's just like, you know, I don't think Japanese necessarily know what the word means. Yeah, anyway, yeah, so it's just kind of coincidence. I mean, I've since gotten access to, like, you know, my spiked hoodie, and then the one that sort of has the mohawk thing, and then, yeah, my friend getting me a little devil thing. She also got me like that red devil jacket that I've sometimes worn in my gaming live streams. Yeah, so, and it's kind of funny, people see me in one video and think, one short, and think I must be a furry. So that's one of the more recent ones. Another thing though, like when I was more on the music scene, and so that's when I was being a little bit more social, I was actually on antidepressants at the time. That's probably one of the reasons I was able to do it. Because yeah, some of those antidepressants, when I took them, you know, the one that was on longest that destroyed my appetite, when I took it, like I kind of got this jitteriness. It gives you this weird kind of energy, and it just has to come out some way. Yeah, and then when I would come off it and then try new antidepressants, I'd often get that sort of initial jitteriness as well. And yeah, let's just say what happens in band prac stays in band prac. Memories. Yeah. Anyway, no, when I was doing that, I also had the colored hair. And colored hair gets a lot of people making interesting assumptions. Obviously today, people will think you're trying to be non-binary or something, or whatever gazillion genders people think that is. Another one is like, you know, the blue-haired feminist stereotype, and that is not why I had blue hair. It's just like I was going for an ocean in the front, fire in the back kind of a theme. So, you know, it was nothing to do with feminism. I did like go to an all-girls school and they had a sort of feminism, but it was also a Catholic school, so it had a weird idea of feminism. It was like more of a conservative one. And but you know, I had issues with feminism even there, because for the HSC they made us watch Clueless, like legit Clueless, and like their justification is that it's based on a 200-year-old book by Jane Austen, and I'm like, that does not make it better. Jane Austen's books are these horrible romance things, and I'm like, ugh. So being feminist means you're going to feed us this stereotypical bullshit and I'm supposed to like it? Fuck you, we could have done the other option we had was Blade Runner. If you want to be a progressive school, let us watch Blade Runner instead of this girly shit. Oh, sorry, just having a bit of a high school English PTSD moment. Yeah, anyway, no, so I sort of got disillusioned with feminism very early on, and the only things I've done that were like overtly feminist have been like normal feminism as opposed to today's crazy feminism. Like when I was trying to get into a band after Wintergaunt finished, and a lot of the time I couldn't even get an audition just because I was female. Never mind that I can growl and scream and all that, you know, rah kinds of stuff, make those non-girly sounds. Never mind that I can do that, just the fact that I was female, I wouldn't get in. Or the fact that I was female, people would be like, yeah, let's totally do some music, and then invite me on a date anyway, and I'm like, I'm here for music, I'm not here for that, fuck you. So I had a lot of trouble with that, and that's why I kind of started my old girl band, because I realized I had a band's worth of musicians, of female friends, that I could just put together to make a band, and that was that. It wasn't like, rah feminism. Like none of the songs were about feminism. It was just, I wanted to be in a band, the guys weren't doing it for me, so let's get the girls together, eliminate a bunch of the pressures that come with working with dudes who don't take you seriously, and there you go, got my band going, and that's like the most successful band I've been in. It's just, it stopped because I got too depressed. Yeah, so there was that, and then, you know, also at uni when I was doing audio engineering, some of the guys were dicks, and so I started a female audio engineers group on Facebook, so that we could just discuss audio engineering things without them being dicks. Like, show us a mix. Fuck off. We're all students as well. Like, oh my god, I'm so up and stuff. So that's the kind of stuff I did, is like when I couldn't fit into a space purely because of being female, I'd just go and make my own space and, you know, not deal with that. And then the guys who were actually like decent guys, they would have no problem with it. It's just the dickheads who were like, oh, not all men, blah blah blah, and just, you know, not understanding the problem that I was having and think I was doing this exclusionary thing. Like, there's a reason we have female-only spaces, because sometimes men and women just don't get along. We are different. Anyway, so having the blue hair, that was actually like way after the bands that I had blue hair. While I was in the band, I was just constantly changing my hair color. Actually, you know, in 2020, I think, is when I started coloring my hair again, and I had that blue at the front, fire up the back for like a bit over a year, and until I shaved it all off. Before that, like, I'd stopped coloring it, but before I stopped coloring it, like, I stopped coloring it because I was depressed. Before that, it's like every 3 to 6 months I would change color, and I'd go to my hairdresser and be like, here's my inspiration pictures, and she'd be like, oh my god, and saying like, you know, okay, you can't have this color next to this color because it's going to mix and blah blah blah, and then we'd come up with a design. It was kind of an artistic thing rather than like me trying to make a statement. It's just I got bored of having boring hair, so I was constantly changing, but I couldn't settle on a hair color. Yeah, so I didn't even have blue hair at the time. I don't know if, I think maybe that ocean and fire hair was probably the first time I had the blue hair. Anyway, so people have thought I was a feminist. Also, when I was out on the scene with my girl band, we set up this little table, like we had a sort of a merch table, and we also had this jar of lollies. And there's one time this girl runs up to me and is like, "You realize those lollies have bugs in them, right?" And I just said, I've told this story before, sorry for those of you who've heard it before, but I just said like, "Oh, you know, in some countries bugs are a delicacy." And the look of horror on her face, she was like, "So you're not vegan then?" I think the colored hair plus being skinny, and that was back when I was on the antidepressant that destroyed my appetite. So I was even skinnier than I am now. And because I was performing that day, fuck knows I probably had a corset on as well. So, you know, colored hair, being skinny, they just assume that you're vegan. I am not vegan. I love my bacon and I like meat, mince, spaghetti bolognese, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, animal cruelty sucks, but I still want to eat something. So I think it's important to have animal activists just to improve processes in how we deal with animals, but I don't want to get rid of eating animals entirely. And so I'm glad that we've come up with a seaweed that you can give to cows that reduces the cows' methane emissions, because environmental stuff as well these days. But yeah, no, so people have thought that I'm not schizoid, that I'm a furry, that I am some kind of weird gender person, that I am some kind of raging feminist, and that I'm a vegan, and God knows what else. Like, we also had, with my girl band, you know, it was called Rainbow Death Ray, and at the time, like, I don't think about gay stuff, so it didn't occur to me that having a rainbow in there would look gay, like LGBT, whatever. I did not think about that. I just wanted something that was like feminine-ish, so kind of pretty, but not pink. You know, not your stereotypical female pink kind of thing. So I was like, rainbow death ray, and it kind of sounds kind of fun. But yeah, of course, later on I realized, and when the gay marriage happened in the US and then it happened here, and then I'm like, that was just me being oblivious to society. I've often been oblivious to society, so whoopsie daisy. And then the fact that I do the rah 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 kinds of growling in some of the songs. We had one guy commenting on Facebook about how he was watching us and we were a lesbian death metal band. We were not lesbians, we were not death metal. So people will come up with all kinds of assumptions. Now, I think at least one of the girls might have been a lesbian, but we were not all lesbians and we were not death metal. I suppose you could argue that we were a reasonably good representation of LGBT, because like I was ace, another girl was bi, another one maybe lesbian, another one I think straight, so we were sort of like everything, but that wasn't what we were intending to do, and none of our lyrics were about that. I don't think any of our lyrics were political, except for like maybe the song where I was talking about growing up Catholic. It was called Blind Faith, and some of the pressures of that, being expected to be a certain way by your religion. That's probably the most political we ever got. Otherwise, like, one song is legitimately about a cat. What You've Become, that's on our EP. That was about my ex's cat. And I made it sound like it's about an old man, but it was actually about this cat and some of the things that I noticed with the cat. That's probably one of the first songs I ever wrote with lyrics that were kind of coherent, and it was about a cat. So, that kind of stuff, and things about my existentialism and so on. That's what the band was about. And the persona I had at the time, I don't know where that came from. That was too bubbly and whatever. But hey, people thought we were gay death metal when we were so far from death metal. I like calling us metal is sort of a borderline thing anyway, because we had sort of that synth pop kind of vibe as well. But that made me laugh. What else have people mistaken me for? Okay, so in high school, there was a point where I got the shits with having long hair. I think I just go through cycles because I don't have a firm sense of identity. I'm constantly changing my appearance. I think that's probably why I do it, because my identity is not solid, it's not stable. So yeah, I used to go through phases of having long and short hair, and so towards the end of high school, I just cut it all off again, went short again, because long hair is a bit of a pain. Like, I get that it can look kind of good in a certain way, but it's such a pain in the butt, and well, a pain in the head. Anyway, yeah, it's just a lot of maintenance, and so like I cut it short again. And then I was in my school uniform walking home, and I hear this girl going, Mom, that girl looks like a boy. And I thought that was so hilarious. This is another thing I don't understand about the gender thing, because I have no problem with being misgendered. I mean, the mum was a bit embarrassed, but I was like, that's fun. Another thing, like one of the times that I was depressed, I had long hair, but I didn't take care of myself. Like nowadays, I have a routine where I make sure I shower once a week. But before I had that routine, I would go months without showering. It just, because, you know, you always have to do it. Like I hate these routines. Like, you know how you have to brush your teeth every day. I'm like, why? I'm just gonna have to brush them tomorrow. Why can't my teeth brush themselves, kind of thing. I guess that's part of being depressed, is everything feels like this huge effort, even though I know I have to brush my teeth so I won't get cavities and won't have to go get the dentist to drill things and be extra painful. Okay, I get it. Anyway, showering, slightly less reason to, because it's not like, you know, if I don't brush my teeth might fall out, but if I don't wash, I suppose I might get a skin condition, so I probably should keep washing. Anyway, at the time I was just so depressed I couldn't shower, so my hair was like kind of scraggly and gross, and I would wear baggy shirts, so I wasn't really doing the goth thing at the time. This could have been in high school still, maybe. I don't even remember. I don't remember when this was, but yeah, big baggy shirts and the jeans and so on, and I was looking pretty rough. And I remember being out with my dad at the shops, and one of his church lady friends came up and was like talking to him and went, oh, and is this your son? And I just find it so amusing when people think I'm a dude. Am I supposed to be offended? I don't know. I always find it kind of funny, like playing with the gender expectations. Isn't that more fun than worrying about what pronouns and things people are using? I don't know. I found androgyny quite amusing. Whatever. But like, yeah, at least, like, you know, it's not like I was pretending to be anything else. It was just one of those funny observations. But yeah, no, so I've been mistaken for a dude a few times, and that's always funny. Also on Facebook, I often get mistaken for a dude because I've had the same really dark, dodgy profile picture forever. And because my name, Mariko, it looks kind of like Marco misspelled. It's a bit unfamiliar, and so people don't really know whether it's male or female because a lot of them don't know Japanese culture and Japanese names, so they don't know that it's a female name, and so they'll think that I'm a dude. And sometimes when they find out I'm a chick, they get all like, oh no, I'm so sorry, and I'm just cackling. I'm not offended. But anyway, so I guess people have also thought I'm a dude and that I'm offended by being called a dude. I don't see the problem. I don't really care. Oh dear. Yeah, so there's that as well. Also, I've had a few videos where I realize I look younger than I am, and so sometimes, and then, you know, my voice, I don't know, I've had a few comments where people have said I sound like a prepubescent boy, and I thought that one was pretty funny, I found recently, because I'm not going to dispute that. Anyway, yeah, no, there's lots of things that people have thought. Also, my school thought I was super religious just because I was super quiet and I just did my work and didn't cause trouble. So that was a thing. People thought I was like super conservative in that sense. Yeah, and they had no idea I'd go home at night and write very violent stories online. They just thought I was the good little Catholic schoolgirl, very quiet, very religious or whatever. And I was an atheist even before I got to high school, so. Yeah, it's funny. People think a lot of strange things about me, and a lot of them are very wrong. And I don't know if this happens to a lot of other people. It seems to happen to me a lot. Is that just because I am odd? You know, the whole schizoid thing of being odd and eccentric. Like when I was looking up schizoid after, like, you know, getting the diagnosis, and I read that it's cluster A, and cluster A is odd and eccentric, I'm like, shit, yeah, that is probably where I fit. you know, like even the fact that I dress like this probably shows that I just don't give a shit about what's normal. I know what's normal. It's not that I have no awareness, it's just that I don't care and I'd rather do what I find comfortable. But, you know, it's not like I'm in a profession where I need to act a certain way. Like, I'm not a politician or a teacher, although politicians can get away with a certain amount of stuff if you do it right. There are some fun and interesting politicians, and then there are the ones who are just absolute whack jobs, and that's why we tolerate them. But there's the fun ones, like Jackie Lambie. She just says what she thinks, and often, like, I don't agree with everything she says, but often it's quite sensible and she can be quite funny. So you can break free from those stereotypes in those professions, but it's difficult. Yeah, no, that was just a thought I had about, you know, I don't fit the schizoid stereotype, but I also don't fit a lot of other stereotypes. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it is just because I'm an odd person. My godmother has told me that even before the whole childhood trauma stuff, it was clear that I was a bit different and I was marching to the beat of my own drum. And so I guess I've always been a little bit unusual. And maybe that's why I ended up schizoid rather than some other condition, because I was predisposed to be a bit odd and, you know, thinking in my own way and not wanting to be like everyone else. So I probably had a bit of the predisposition, but then the environmental factors really kicked things into gear. Yeah, no, people think some strange things about me. Be interesting to know, like, so if you have an idea about me that you're not sure whether it's true or not, you could leave that in the comments. That could be kind of amusing to find out, although I know a lot of my audience are very quiet, so I'm not exactly expecting a lot. But yeah, no, some strange expectations from people. And then I know that I do weird things, like my vocals are kind of this weird extreme. For, like, you know, singers who do the clean singing and screaming, usually they're like chest voice and fry scream, which, you know, kind of close together to be able to cross over. But I've gone for head voice and, yeah, really deep false chord death growl, you know, and I can do the whole kinds of things instead of the more kinds of, you know, almost sounds like speech things that's a bit more popular in metalcore, for example. Yeah, no, I do have a tendency to do things weirdly, and I wonder if that's why people get the wrong idea about me. Like, I will happily do the hair coloring thing, but without the political intentions that other people have. Although I gotta say, with the hair coloring thing, right, most of the people who are activists, or even like the gender non-conforming stuff, some of them are not like this, but I get the impression that with a lot of activists, they do a DIY job because it's cheap. And so often all they've done is bleached it and then put color in it. And it's not always done very well, but often, like, even if it's done well, it might just be one color. Whereas I would go to actual hair salons where there's someone who's an expert at things and get all these really crazy patterns and, you know, difficult colors to put together and difficult hairstyles that, you know, you would have to be really skilled. I know there are some people who are really skilled, but to be able to, like, do things just looking at the back of your head takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. So to be able to do the kinds of hair that I was doing, you need to have a certain amount of money. And so, you know, if I didn't live with my parents, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But, you know, I spent money on my hair, whereas I think some of the activists, especially if they're going for a communist-ish kind of, you know, that left-wing vibe, I think they would tend to just do it themselves the cheapest way possible. And so, you know, when people look at me with, you know, when I had the blue hair, they don't always see the yellow behind, but, you know, if you see the yellow behind, you would think, hang on, this is a bit different to your regular blue-haired feminist. Something different's going on here. I know this isn't always the case, and sometimes they'll get their friends to help out, but I was just like, excuse me, my hair is better than that. Is that me being a bit up myself? Oh, dear. Yeah, stuff and things. I'm a little bit different to other people in a lot of different ways, and I don't know, it's probably because I'm odd. I don't know if that has anything to do with my unstable identity. I think that's more just the number of changes of hair color and how I keep changing my appearance. I don't do it consciously. It's just today I just felt like wearing the cat hat, whereas the other day I felt like wearing the darker kinds of stuff. I don't really know if there's a particular reason I'll choose one on a particular day or another. Because today I still woke up with some of the darker dissociative dissociative things about my brain in my head, so why didn't I choose something darker? I don't know, today I just felt like, let's do cat mode. Yeah, but that's off topic. That's a different thing. Why do people think that I am things that I'm not? I guess people are always making assumptions. And then stereotypes do exist for a reason. Because when we were trying to survive in the wild before we like built our unnatural cities and whatever, you know, you would have to judge a situation very quickly, because if you didn't, you might die. If you didn't identify that predator in the woods, that lion or whatever that's about to come at you, if you didn't identify it quickly and get the heck out of there, you might die. So stereotypes exist for a reason. It's just, you know, in the modern world, sometimes it causes us to treat people unfairly, but I do recognize the evolutionary reason, and so people are making assumptions about me based on stereotypes, because people who color their hair do tend to be a certain way. I think probably the main thing about colored hair and stereotypes, the main stereotype you could apply to me is mental illness, but the other things about like activism or feminism, well, I suppose feminism is activism, whatever, the other stuff there, that doesn't really apply. I'm more of like the type of feminist who is like, I would like to vote and I would like to be able to have the chance to do things like, you know, I could join the army, but because I am this tiny armed female, I'm not going to be accepted into the army because I'm not fit enough. But it's nice that I could apply if I did have the skills. Like, I'm that type of feminist. I'm not the sort of one who is like, you know, we have to have equal representation of women in the army. I'm like, no, that would be absolutely insane. I'm quite happy letting the boys go off to fight their wars. That's not the thing I'm into. That's sort of more of my attitude. And so by today's definitions, would you still call me a feminist? I don't know. I know people have tried to come up with different words for it, and I do not give a shit about semantics, labels, whatever. You can argue about that. Anyway, no. Where was I going with that rant? I just completely like lost my train of thought. That happens too much. Yeah, colored hair, mental illness. That's the stereotype that applies to me, but otherwise, yeah, no, stereotypes exist because there's a reason for it. And it can help you make quick judgments where you need to. But I think sometimes I do behaviors that fall into stereotypes that I am not a part of, and that might be why people get these interesting ideas about me, like being vegan. No, that's not why I'm skinny. It's probably mental illness again that's making me skinny. Probably everything comes back to mental illness for me. But yeah, furry, I am not a furry. I just like wearing the hats. But again, maybe a sign of mental illness. Yeah, kind of, I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about, the expectations people have of me and the things people get wrong. Although if we're talking about mental illness, me not fitting a schizoid stereotype is a bit more interesting, but being schizoid, I don't want to fit into a stereotype. I don't want to fit into a label. I'm a 90s kid. I don't want to fit into a label. I will accept that certain labels apply to me, like having mental illness, like having schizoid, like having depression, like being biologically female. I don't know what's going to happen if they force us. Like, if we are forced to go along with the current gender ideology, I'll probably come out as agender because I'm not a fan of gender. That will be my way of rejecting gender altogether. At least by the like when I grew up, gender was just a different way to say sex without getting the kids giggling about, oh, you said sex, when you mean, you know, the differentiation between male and female. Whatever. No, I'm rambling. Maybe I should stop there before I hurt myself. But yeah, no, I'm just constantly subverting people's expectations, and I don't mean to. It's just something that happens. Oh my God, that made me think of bonsai, because, you know, I haven't worked bonsai at all this year, but something my boss has often said, even when I first had lessons, but now when I've been working for him for 4 years, he'd say like, yes, I actually did fit the traditional principles in the bonsai that I design, but there's always something a bit different and unusual about them, that it still fits the principles, but it's not what he expected me to make. And then he's thinking about, how would we even teach like a student to do what I've done? It's just so out there that he's like, this is weird. So even when it comes to a very traditional art form like bonsai, I'm still somehow subverting expectations, even when I'm technically following all the rules. With my own bonsai, sometimes I will break the rules on purpose, because they're my own bonsai, who gives a shit? But at work, I have to do work. Like I have to make them fit to be able to sell them and fit the aesthetic of the nursery, but I always somehow make things different and interesting, and he likes it. Apparently my bonsai sell quite quickly. I guess because maybe it's because I'm not traditionally, like super strictly traditionally trained. I didn't go to Japan and learn from some master who has a very specific way of doing things. I learned from my boss and from my sensei in Australia. But I think also I have more of a consumer level idea of what makes an interesting bonsai to look at. So I know what customers want, what they find interesting. People like curves in trees and interesting shapes, and so my stuff sells quickly, but it's also different. Maybe it sells because it's different, I don't know. But yeah, even when I'm trying to stick to some very traditional art form, I somehow manage to do things differently without even trying. That's interesting. That's not exactly someone expecting something different about me or misinterpreting who I am, but it's just another sign of me being different. Yeah, I think I'll leave it on that, because now I'm going to start thinking about a completely different tangent. And I think I've done enough. I've gone on enough of a ramble today. So yeah, bye. I'll see you next time. God knows what hat I'll have or how I'll look. But yeah, no, let me know if you had some weird expectation about me that may or may not be right, and that could be kind of fun to know. Bye.